Okay, well, good morning, folks. I want to welcome you to our podcast this Thursday morning. I'm especially excited this morning because this is the first time we're broadcasting from our new location in Alexandria, Louisiana. So we're excited about that, and I welcome you here. I'm delighted that you're here. We'll try to have this posted by tomorrow, and so I'm just delighted that you've joined us here today. My guest this morning on the podcast is Mike Nichols. Mike is a resident of Vernon Parish. I think he lives near Pitkin. Do you live in Pitkin?
In Pitkin.
He lives in the city limits of Pitkin.
Well, if there was a city limits.
But he's from Vernon Parish, and Mike is a candidate for U.S. Congress in the 4th Congressional District. And we'll talk a little bit about that geographically a little bit later, but he's running for that seat in the 4th Congressional District. There are 5 candidates, I believe, 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and so that's coming up in November. It's kind of been a confusing situation. It's been canceled, now it's back, and so they've had to kind of redo things twice. But that'll be an open primary in November, and we encourage you to get out and vote vote for the candidate that represents your values and your views. Let me just say here at the beginning, Mike has several things on his platform or in his platform, and one of the things that is in his platform is environmental stewardship. We'll talk about that a little bit. Fiscal responsibility, and I know from being with Mike in several different locations and several different meetings that Mike is all about transparency. One of the big things we need in government today is transparency, and Mike is for more open and more transparent government for the citizens that send people to Washington or send people to Baton Rouge to represent us. So, Mike, welcome. Thanks for coming by.
Good morning. Good to see you again,
I know you're
Rob.
very, very busy, and appreciate you coming by and taking time to be here with us. Let me ask you right here at the beginning, just an interesting phenomena or an interesting thing. Can a regular guy get elected to Congress?
Well, we're going to put that to the test, Rob. When we set out, we ask ourselves that very question. Is it even possible? And you obviously have a lot of naysayers because we've seen congressional races that they throw 20 million, 25 million, 30 million in a for a U.S. House of Representatives race, and that's been recently across the country. I know a lot of these politicians have war chest, themselves $5 to $10 million. So that's a very interesting question, and I'm going to answer it like this. I've been approached by, I would call very wealthy people, and they're like, Mike, you do realize that a poor man can't hire anybody. And Rob, we all grew up very poor. They were saying you couldn't rub 2 nickels together. And we've all heard that our entire life. But I answered their question like this, and I said, I understand that businesses have to make money and corporations have to make money, but there's this thing called greed. And for once, the poor people, they are going to get to hire somebody. They're going to get to hire me for Congress, Rob.
Well, and that goes to the second part of what I was going to mention about that. You brought it up. So much money, so much PAC money. Even, Mike, in local races, police jury, you're talking about if you don't have at least $100,000 in the bank, you can't run, you can't buy the signs. And so I hope that's changing. I see more and more, and especially this election that's coming up, I see more and more, I call them just everyday common people who have worked for a living, maybe retired, lived in their communities all their lives. I see more and more people getting involved in actually running for office outside of what I call the political machine and the people who control so much of that. And you're exactly right. It seems like the one common denominator that comes up all the time is money.
And lots of it.
And lots of it. It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's really unbelievable. Well, our founding fathers, Mike, I know you know this, they never envisioned when they started, created Congress, they never envisioned that to be a full-time job. Most of the time they would go and meet 2 or 3 times a year when they had business to take care of. They'd come back home and they would ranch or farm or whatever they did back in their communities, and that was it. Nowadays, it's become almost a political career for somebody to go up there. They go, and once they get there, they stay. And I know you have signed the term limit agreement, and I'm glad to see that. I wish more people would do that.
And I did sign the term limit agreement early on, and I've always been a believer in term limits. And you obviously you have to ask the question, how long is enough? I think 6 years is enough in Congress, and then maybe we allow them to serve another 6 years in the Senate. But when does it become too long? I mean, definitely 12 years is enough. And you hear them talk in Congress about term limits, except during election time. You notice you never hear that during election time.
Right, and a lot of people, the other side of that coin, a lot of people say, well, term limits are decided by the public. And I understand that, the term limits are decided at the voting booth, but sometimes, like we were talking about, there's so much money involved and people become so entrenched that you just simply, you can't ever get them out, and they stay there for.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of term limits. I wish that, we had 17% voter turnout for the Senate race. People were so disenfranchised. You talk to the younger people, and they just kind of shrug as far as getting them interested in the political process. And really what kind of drove me into this is I'm seeing that unfold with my own eyes. And I'm seeing it within my family.
So people are just apathetic.
They're like, what good does it do to vote? And because of all the money, they see that. They see that's what's driving the decisions.
I almost think you read my notes here, because that was what I was going to bring up. Why is it, and you've addressed that to some degree, why is it that people will not participate? In Rapides Parish, I think the last election, 14% of the people voted. One of the largest was the last presidential election. We actually got over 50%, which is still not perfect, but it's better.
A lot better.
But people would just, it seems as if they feel like they're not represented. It doesn't do any good. It's the same old kinds of things that go on, and they don't see a lot of change. So I appreciate you saying that, and I'm hoping that will change, and I don't know the answer to how to get them more involved. And
I've knocked on a lot of doors. I've talked to a lot of younger families with children. Some of them who are really struggling right now with their landscape companies, trying to buy gas and trying to buy diesel. Actually say, Mike, we don't know if we're going to make it or not. And I see that within my own family. $200 or $300 can make the difference for us.
It can.
And it's hard for wealthy people to understand that. I've actually had these discussions with some of these wealthy people, and they just give you the deer in the headlights look. How can $200 or $300 really matter that much? And I said, it does to the people I know, and even within my own family. And it used to matter to me, Rob, whether the bills got paid or not. Now we got a little bit more wiggle room than that. We're certainly not independently wealthy by any stretch. And talking to these young people being disenfranchised, I thought back when I was in that position. We're getting up in the morning, we're trying to make a living. When you think back, we didn't really have time to be where I'm at right now to deal with all this political, poo-poo, whatever you want to call it, Rob. I mean, we didn't. What did we do? We were some can to can when you think about it. We're just trying to make a living, pay the bills. So I think some of it is that, in their defense, is hey, I don't have time for all that nonsense, all that back and forth like politicians do, and I don't know who to believe, and I don't know what to believe. I got to go to work.
And they don't see a lot of change in their lives.
Yeah, I got to pay the bills, and it seems like it keeps getting harder and harder to pay the bills, is where I was headed with that. So I think that's where they're at, is hey, you're not helping me. Why should I bother to go vote?
And it almost seems sometimes that those that are in political power use the fact that there's going to be a low voter turnout. They use that to their benefit in some way in terms of controlling that. And
yeah, with what's going on in the district right now, you wonder, you really do wonder, is all this strategic? Is all the redistricting strategic? Is changing from a closed primary to an open primary strategic on their part? or is it just the way the cards fell? You know, but you keep on pushing forward, you know, because we got into this battle. We're going to finish it. You know, I think it helps to just keep putting things off and putting things off. We'd gained a lot of momentum. So I think it does help the incumbents anytime they can manipulate the system and keep the voters. They don't even know when the election is, so to speak. I had so many people ask me, Rob, they said, how'd you do, Mike? How'd you do?
You'd already run.
No, they voted for me. They sent me there where they voted for me. I mean, lots of people. And I just didn't have the heart to text them back and say, you know, your vote didn't count, right? Because I've never even contemplated that in my entire life, that I wouldn't have to think about that, something like that, honestly. It kind of put me off, like we probably shouldn't have done things that way, because it disenfranchised people even more. So now we got to deal with that, like, well, y'all already had that election. We already voted on it.
It certainly feeds the mistrust of the people. It feeds into their distrust of what's going on.
Absolutely.
Mike, you know, the 4th Congressional District is huge. I know that you know that. You've been traveling it. Borders all the way, goes all the way up to the border with Arkansas, comes back down and down the Sabine River, cuts back across Allen Parish, Evangeline Parish, I guess all the way to I-49 almost.
49.
So it is a huge, diverse district. And if I'm not mistaken, it's probably the largest geographically in the state. Forestry, two huge military bases in the district, farmers down south, you get into the rice farmers and all of that. So it's a huge, diverse kinds of. What changed? Was it just Allen and Evangeline that they added, or did it?
Well, they eliminated Wynn Parish, they eliminated Grant Parish. I say the people who make these decisions. I'll go ahead and say it, because I are one, like they say. You know, sometimes you're a redneck, you can say I are one. Right. Well, I are a Republican. The Republicans did this, you know, fortunately, unfortunately. But that district, they took a lot of rural support away from me. They took Grant Parish, they took Wynn Parish, they took South Rapides, Hinkston, Woodward, Forest Hill, Plainview. You know, we had been to all the churches, we'd met with the people, down to earth, talked to everybody, and I had a lot of support that is gone now. And so I picked up Natchitoches and Shreveport, which was Congressman Cleo Field's district. Right. So, you know, I lost a lot of rural support in the redistricting. And when they first started it, you know, ironically, we made jokes about it. We put out a map, Linda and I did, on Facebook, that they were just going to put Vernon Parish in with Texas and be done with us.
I saw something about that.
Yeah, we joked about that. But they actually tried to put us with Lafayette. They tried to put Vernon Parish and Beauregard Parish and all of us with Lafayette. And like you mentioned earlier, you're aware of socioeconomic, we're forestry parishes. Right. And they're more urban, agriculture, rice and sugar cane, and we're more forestry. So even though that would have benefited me, because then I'd have been running against Clay Higgins instead of the Speaker of the House, is I was opposed to that district being drawn like that, because I felt like we needed to stick with the forestry socioeconomic driver for our district. So I opposed it for what good it did. It probably didn't have anything to do with the outcome, but they did use some common sense and keep us mostly forestry based in District 4.
Mike, I read the other day that in Congress there are 179 members of Congress out of 200 and ever how many there are. 179 members of Congress who are lawyers that have been elected to Congress. 1 in 3 members of Congress is a lawyer. Farmers make up only 6% of those that are representing us in Congress. 1 out of every, or 31 lawmakers spend their time outside of Washington, farming, ranching, going back and doing those kinds of things. And my question is this, and I know a lot of people are discouraged. They say, well, nothing ever happens, and we don't see a lot of. Tell me how you can come to a consensus with enough people in that kind of a diverse setting with people from all different backgrounds, and especially all the lawyers, on an issue like ending 45Q tax rebates. How can you ever get people together to get something like that through? Is it possible?
Well, that's a good question, and we've talked about this for the last 20 years. And the way people describe me is like, Mike, sometimes you can just pull a rabbit out of the hat, building consensus like that. So I don't know if it's luck. You know, it may be luck. I don't know what it is. But I seem to have that knack. We have all these people sitting around the table, 20 of us, and we've got to reach consensus and build consensus. As you get older and more experienced, you gain that wisdom on how to work with people. There's a lot of give and take. And sometimes I get criticized for that I consider myself very conservative. But I'm talking about when it comes to getting our roads and bridges and all those things that we can agree on. And let's fight all the things we disagree on outside of that. Let's not bring that into the discussion. So I think a lot of people, regardless of whether you live in Shreveport or whether you live in Pitkin, Louisiana, or Ville Platte, want our roads and bridges, infrastructure. I think that's very critical. They want health care. They want our Social Security looked after. And so I really believe that. Now, are there some issues that is going to stir up controversy? Oh, sure, I could name some right now. Gun control would be at the top of the list. I'm very proud. But if I start off that morning arguing with you about gun control, we're probably never going to get to fixing the roads and bridges. And I see that a lot with issues. I see where we start, you know, we're like, well, we're going to fight about this thing, just like right now, the Farm Bill is at the Senate. And as far as I know, they haven't passed it unless they passed it just recently. But how long has it been since we passed a new Farm Bill? Congress got it through, got it done, but they took forever to do it.
Right.
So there's so much that goes into that and so many diverse interests. You're right. You know, there's some of the Democrats want things in the Farm Bill that probably shouldn't be in the Farm Bill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that being with the government for 40 years and working with all the different federal agencies, all the state agencies, and the universities and the politicians, I've worked with Washington. I've worked on the Farm Bill. So I think that would allow me the knack, if you will, or the ability, you know, or maybe it is luck, right? You know,
well, just the ability to sit down and to listen and communicate, you know, goes a long way.
I've had people tell me that. I've had lawyers tell me that, by the way, that we work with, that they own, you know, farmland, and we do a lot of coastal conservation restoration projects. And they said, Mike, you're the first bureaucrat that we've ever met that can listen, that even knows how to listen. And you know those saying, right, we were taught it. It's not that common now, but why do you think you have a mouth that closes and ears that don't? You know, we really need to be good listeners. And I'm going to tell you this, I tell all my people that I talk to, is sometimes you may think because we're talking about an issue and we may not actually fully agree on the issue, when I get in my truck and start driving down the road, I'm thinking about what you told me, because you know what, I may not be right. I may need to listen to the voters and say, hey, they may have a point. And I think we're missing that now. And with our representatives, is they don't do that. They gang up behind closed doors and they make decisions without us having input, true input, like we're sitting here today doing and talking about.
Well, I see that a lot. I see it locally and at the national level. It seems as if they've forgotten they represent us. It's the will of the people that they should be facilitating and moving forward with. And sometimes it seems like it's their own will. I don't want to get too far off in the weeds with carbon sequestration and that, but that's very important. You know, most people, well, not most people, but some people think that if you are against that and sequestration and 45Q tax credits, that you're a far left wing tree hugger or something.
That's one of the things they're trying to run with.
And it's not true. I know that's not true. And so why is it that you hear very few people running for office, especially in it's such a big issue all over our state, but particularly in this district. Why is it they never say anything about it? They want to walk kind of the middle line there and stay on both sides?
It's been their strategy. I'm going to go ahead and call them out right here. It's been their strategy from day one. I've been in this game a long time. I commented on the Green Pipeline as a federal employee representing the people in like 2012 that they built across the state to protect our prime farmlands and to protect our conservation easements. So I've been aware of what's going on a long time, and so have they. This has been building for years, this process of carbon capture, which is not really carbon capture anyways, it's carbon dioxide capture. That's like saying points in baseball, right, when you say carbon capture. And I know everybody does, and I know that's how they frame it.
Right.
But carbon dioxide is 72% oxygen. So the taxpayers are paying to pump 72% oxygen in the ground. So as a technical person who is experienced in the HVAC business, certified commercial, industrial, residential, automotive, while I was resting along the way, I got those certifications. But I'm very familiar with gases and how they work. So this whole concept of taking CO2, which is 72% oxygen, and compressing it and putting it in the ground, I think it's almost like a fairy tale. It's like believing in the tooth fairy, is where I first started having problems with it from a technical standpoint. I'm like, guys, this ain't gonna work. It's like one of them hold my beer moments.
So Mike, let me ask you this. I don't mean to interrupt you. Just from my understanding, if you are in favor of that, then you buy into the premise that global warming is true. That it's, I mean, the destructive kinds that they're talking about going to destroy the world.
We've had those discussions, and as a scientist, I bring it up to people. You know, as a scientist, you have to listen to the people, but you have to look at the data. There's some evidence that the planet is warming if you look at the science. But what's causing it? Is CO2 causing it? I mean, there's where the rub starts. There's so many things that goes into that, what determine what's causing it. CO2, water vapor affects it. Cows, yeah, if you listen to AOC that cows poop too much. But I always joke about that, is I have a special breed of cattle. They don't poop too much, is what I'm going to tell AOC when I get to Congress. You know, we need to promote that breed of cattle. But anyways, to answer your question, is we're not a bunch of radicals.
Right,
we're very down to earth. We've been with oil and gas. My son works at the plants in Lake Charles. He's a welding inspector, for goodness sakes. My first job out of high school was a welder's helper on pipeline. My brother and sister are pipe fitters. My brother helped build a nuclear plant. I mean, so these people that are throwing this out there trying to get it to stick, they probably couldn't use a cutting torch. They probably couldn't burn a rod, Rob, that we can, and we understand gases, and we understand the risk associated with this, and we understand that it's a total waste of our tax dollars.
So many people in my church and in my churches down through the years have worked in the energy field, from Alaska to the Gulf, just about everywhere. So I know this, Mike Nichols is not against Louisiana energy, American energy, any of that.
I want our energy to thrive. I want our natural gas business to thrive. I want us to use it here in the state to generate electricity at low cost to our consumers. We should be one of the wealthiest states in the United States, Rob, and there's no question mark about that. We should be paying the lowest utility costs because of all our natural gas. And so there's a lot of room for improvement there. And I always use the example, we should be ahead of Alaska. Alaska gives their citizens, all their people, a check every year from their oil and gas production.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, and we should, honestly, we could have done it here had it been managed right, but I really get frustrated when all our wealth seems to leave, and I really have a big hang up along with this CCS stuff along those lines, because that seems to be the case once again. All these companies, they are from out of state. They have foreign entities involved in them, getting our federal tax dollars to take that wealth out of the state. So once again, I think they're robbing us, you know.
Right.
No pun intended, but
That makes sense.
I think they are, and
Right.
I don't like to see that. I don't like to see to come in are people that are already, they don't worship money. They just want to pay their bills, and I don't like seeing them taken advantage of.
This is a trivia question. It doesn't have anything really to do with what we're talking about. I think 39 people who are in Congress today live in their congressional office. They live out of it. They take a shower in the gym and get dressed and go to work. So if you're elected, you're going to move?
Well, I'm going to have an apartment somewheres. Now, it may be a boathouse on some lake up there, but I'm going to stay up there within striking distance when we're in session. When we're not in session, I'll be here in the district all the time. I'll be at the school board meeting. I'll be at the police jury meeting. And you just don't see that anymore. Used to, that's how it was with our elected officials. And you know this, you could call them and they might not answer right away, but they're calling you back probably within the next hour or two. And you and I, we've been fortunate enough to experience that. Even with our U.S. representatives and with our federal senators, that was the case. John Breaux, Bennett Johnston. And I hate to throw these names up because, he's bragging on those Democrats. I'm going, well, we were all Democrats when we started out where I lived because Grandma would have twisted your ear off if you'd have tried to register as a Republican. Right? So I don't try to get too caught up in that. And now we're all conservative Republicans. But the key word there, we've been conservatives. We just happen to be Republicans now. So.
I'm going to ask you in just a moment, just some quick things. I call it the rapid fire. You've already answered some of them. And you're pro-life.
Pro-life.
Pro-Second Amendment.
Very much so.
Okay, here's one. Are you pro-national security, pro-military? I know you are.
Absolutely.
Which is going to be a big issue all the time before you with Fort Polk and Barksdale.
I want Fort Polk and Barksdale to be the premier bases in the world.
Okay, have you ever signed an NDA?
Would not even think about it. Would never even.
Well, those are becoming political poison now. More people in the last 2 months, state senators, they have turned their back and said, "Take my name off."
I just do not even like the idea of an NDA. I don't think that's appropriate as an elected official. You're hiding something, and you can argue whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but you're hiding something when you sign an NDA.
And that's generating a ton of interest with the voters and backlash from the voters. Are you pro-transparency, more government transparency?
Well, I think that, once again, I say a lot of this in jest, but politicians lie when the truth would do better. So let's just all, let's put everything out in front of the people and let's decide what's the best path forward. Let the people say. That's how I feel. I might be, knowledgeable about this CCS stuff, but if the ultimate decision is that's what the people want, then that's what the people get. So, even though I try to talk them out of it, Rob, we got to.
So how much of that, Mike? We should get back to local control with a lot of that kind of stuff. The CCS, all of it. That's.
We've taken a lot of power away from our local officials, by design or not. I don't know if Baton Rouge did it on purpose, but I hear that a lot. That we don't have no say so. Well, we do. And come November the 3rd, you do have a say so. Is you can say, okay, yeah, here's my say-so, is you don't get to tell me I don't have a say-so no more. I think that's what we need to do.
I think it is, and government controls so much of our lives, and there are certain parts that they should, Social Security, our welfare, our safety, defense, and those kind of things, but so many things they need to just stay out of and not be bugging us. Ronald Reagan said the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." And I think people are weary of just not only distrust what's going on, but they just don't see their views represented anymore.
I like to say this to sum it up. I'm pro good government because I actually get criticized for people who we're not enemies. I think of us as friends, actually, whether you're Democrat or Republican. And they're like, "Mike, you're anti-government." I says, well, they fed my family for 40 years. Me and my wife both, she works for the state. I work for the federal government. I said, I don't understand how you could reach that conclusion that I'm anti-government. I said I'm pro-good government because I don't believe in wasting our tax dollars. That's the only difference we have. We all know we have to have government, but if you put me on a scale of where I land, is you have to start bringing some libertarian ideas into this discussion, because that is where I land. If we don't need to be in your business, stay out. There's no reason for the government to be, and I think that's a lot of the problem with our economy right now, is the government gets involved in
so
everything.
many things. Now the whole issue with the flock cameras and just a lot of government intrusion and
we have flock cameras in Pitkin, actually.
For real?
For real.
Well, that's unbelievable.
That's hard to believe.
Well, it is. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, listen, we're gonna wrap it up here in just a moment. Tell the folks about Mike Nichols. I know you've told them where you're from. Tell them your heart's desire about wanting to go to Congress
well, I like to tell people that I'm a simple, down-to-earth person. I started out with the Soil Conservation Service, working with the soils. We were Natural Resources Conservation Service, working with the soils. So I like to tell people that I'm well-grounded, because that's the foundation of everything is our. But over the years, I learned how to work with people. I learned how to listen to people through. I worked with all types of people, elected officials, private sector people with conservation, and we worked with farmers, foresters, ranchers. We worked with coastal conservation projects, Rob. There's not many types of folks I haven't worked with along the way, and worked on the Farm Bill. But in my private life, on the side, like I mentioned earlier, I'm certified in industrial HVAC, commercial, residential, because I'm intrigued by those, cooling and heating, and I did it as a hobby. So what I'm saying, I've always been busy. I've always worked at something. My wife, Linda, she's Dr. Linda Nichols, and I do call her that because she earned that. And she was a ICU nurse for 30 years, and then she taught nursing at Northwestern.
She got her degree from Northwestern?
She got her degrees from McNeese, and then she got her advanced degree from Monroe, from Northeast. It's not Northeast anymore.
Right.
We used
University
to be
of Monroe.
University of Monroe, but you remember it used to be the Northeast Indians all our lives. It's no longer the case.
And folks, this is a McNeese cowboy right here. He
That's
graduated
right.
from McNeese.
Go Cowboys. That's going to be I'm probably not going to be popular at the LSU game this year when McNeese goes over there to play. I'll probably have my cowboy hat on, but that's who I am. I'm just a down-to-earth person, right, with 5 grandchildren. They call me Sabi. That's short for Chemo Sabi. Which means trusted scout. And boy, that gets me motivated when I think about that. They get me motivated, right? We got to do what's right. We're on our last quarter. We all know that. But I think we have the political savvy to get this done. I really believe that, or I wouldn't have taken this. I don't want to waste anybody's time. You ask anybody who's ever worked with me, I don't want to waste 1 minute of the day when we're doing something. We're doing a practice, whether it's cutting firewood, or whether it's working the cows, or whether I'm sitting around the table with a bunch of government bureaucrats trying to fund a $50 million conservation project. Let's get the people's work done, and let's do it to the best of our ability.
Appreciate that. Let me ask you one other thing, because I forgot it a moment ago when we were talking about the makeup of Congress. Have you given any thought to what committees you want to be on or request to be on?
Oh, certainly the natural resources committees. That's what I would be most interested in.
Yeah, they control or oversee all the federal lands. I read something interesting. It's just a trivia thing. The Energy Commission, I wrote this down if I can find it. I don't see it. The Energy Commission was the first, is the oldest continuous committee in Congress. It was like 1792, the Energy and Commerce Commission. Would you consider being on energy?
Absolutely. Energy is very important to Louisiana, and then also anything to do with agriculture.
Right.
I would certainly fit well on those committees and have a real practical perspective on how to help Louisiana and how to help District 4. Forestry, we're struggling right now. We can't hardly give our pulpwood away.
How many people have compared you to David and Goliath, facing the Goliath?
Oh, that's been the common theme, everybody along the way, but some of my closest friends, right, and I love my brothers and sisters, and I like their honesty, I like their integrity. They're like, Mike, the only thing is David won.
Well, folks, it's been a pleasure to have Mike Nichols with me here this morning, our premiere broadcast from our new location. Take a look at him, and you never know what God's up to in the mix of everything. And I appreciate Mike so much, and his willingness to come, his willingness to serve and to get in the mix of. It's one thing to stay on the sidelines and complain and try to want things to get better. It's another thing altogether to get in the arena and get in the mix and try to make a difference. So, Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you.
Good.